Welcome back to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, where we will explore the local arts, culture, and community in the Lehigh Valley. We'll be doing this through conversations with individual artists, administrators, and organizations. We'll discuss all types of mediums with the goal of enriching local arts culture.
Welcome back to Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. I'm Elise.
And I'm Ben.
And we are recording on location at Shards Studio with Matt Molchany.
Shards Recording Studio is a brick and mortar creative space in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania's South Side Arts District, operated by Matt Molchany, a multi-instrumentalist, engineer, and songwriter.
Matt, thank you so much for having us in the studio today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Usually we're like welcoming people into our studio, but we're so excited to have a cool location to record today.
Oh yeah, I love having people here.
I was going to say, you had a question, I think last week with our guests about like tech failures during shows.
Oh my
Do you
goodness.
have any like big, horrible tech failures during recording?
Have you been to Arts Fest?
Yes.
In Allentown?
Yes.
At one time, like I was like the director of like the sound stuff for everywhere. So I got the people to run each stage. And if someone wasn't there to like do sound of the stage, I had to do it. And someone simultaneously blew up one of my amps at one stage while someone plugged in an amp into something that wasn't an amp at the other stage. And I literally ran from the far end where Tape Swap stage was with some piece of gear to save the main stage because that was freaking out. Because my friend who gave his PA system to the fest, he had this new kind of like fancy thing where you can control from an iPad and stuff like that, which back then everyone was like, ooh, but if your iPad freezes, you're
That's a lot of
screwed.
Dependency on your Apple
Totally.
tablet.
So I ran a mixer down there. That's right. I ran a mixer down to that stage so we could quick take all the mics out of his cool thing.
Oh my goodness.
Plug it into that mixer.
Yeah.
I think I had something as a backup that I ran. Like I literally ran from stage to stage fixing each stage.
Yeah.
I think that was like the next year that I tore my Achilles tendon, and I blame that day.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was actually sore from how hard I ran and how like horrified I was. Like,
I
I feel
can
like I had
imagine.
like bone spurs or something.
Yeah.
That was a good one. In the studio, things fail, but it's like, it's a studio situation. It's kind of
Sure.
expected when you have this much gear.
Yeah.
Like every like 3 weeks, some mic cable acts up and I have to resolder it or something like that. That's just, you have enough stuff. It's just law of big numbers and something's going to go, something's going to go wrong.
Sure.
So when things happen here that are kind of iffy, it's not the biggest deal. I found a bat in an amp once.
What?
Yeah, we heard this weird squeak while we were in here.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just trying to think of good, like, weird failure stories. But
Sure.
we were like, what is squeaking? Like, something's wrong. I think that amp's broken. And then we were like, looked around the side and you just see a little thing hanging there like... This was like, we had a door open when we were practicing. It was like fall.
Yeah.
It was really nice. And a bat just found its way in.
That's awesome.
Never happened again, unfortunately.
I love this song. Like, what is that noise? And you're like, oh, it's a bat. Yeah.
This song's for the bat demographic.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I can connect that to a weird technique. I also rescued a bird from the heater once.
Oh.
I kept hearing this sound in that heater back there, and I had a mic stuck in it to record drums. So basically, I'll put a mic inside the grate in there,
Got it.
and when someone's playing drums hard enough, it kind of makes the heater actually rattle because it's connected to the ceiling. So anything's transmitted through the floors, through the walls,
got it.
Right.
into the ceiling. Plus, the mic picks up the signal from out here. So it blends together and it has this kind of like cool, metallic, weird, warm, lo-fi reverb. And like I was hearing it up there. And because I had my mic stuck right in it. And like I looked in, I actually took my phone and took a video of down in the thing, and I saw a bird like huddled in the corner.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I like, turned the breaker off and everything, and I got up and I took this bird, and then it got out of my hand. So there was a bird like freaking out, flying around in here for like 10 minutes. Which I
Oh
finally
my gosh.
figured out how to shoo out. But it was thanks to my weird miking the heater technique.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it.
Starting a zoo in here. You got a bat in the amp, a bird in the heater, and there's like this fish on the wall that says shark on it.
There was a weird party once where a lot of weird things went down involving
could
spray
only
paint and
imagine.
stuff. Yeah. When I shared this with bands, we threw a party once and it got real weird in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. But yeah, that happened that night. I got spray painted. Someone spray painted 1,000 sharks on it.
Oh my gosh.
I have no idea why. But I'll take it.
Very fun.
Oh my goodness. So when you have people coming into the studio to record and have you engineer with them, do you see an overwhelming majority from a specific genre? or kind of all over the place?
It's not all over the place, but it's a lot of stuff like that's mainly in like the indie rock kind of grungy, new grungy-ish kind
Sure.
of power poppy stuff. But
Sure.
I've done a bunch of hip hop lately too. I'm starting to mess with making loops and beats and stuff like that a little
very
more.
cool.
I have been for a couple years, but I'm actually gonna really be focusing on it. I have like a sample pack coming out on with BandLab, is formerly Cakewalk Sonar.
Yeah.
So I'm like in this mindset where I'm kind of thinking of everything like, oh, what's a cool, like, what's something I can make that's cool that was someone would want to use to start their song or whatever.
Sure.
But
Sure.
so I'm thinking multi-genre in my head right now. But yeah, it's like all over the place. I've done some jazz with Mike Lorenz and the Witherbys.
Oh, yeah.
They did a live shoot here for video, and then they did like a live session here too. Or Mike did a live session here too with some guys. I did an album with this other jazz guy, Ryan Barry. Yeah, it's all over the place. Yeah, some stuff straight up pop. I get emailed stuff to mix too. That's just like electronic music and stuff. Kind of like, I like to find the soul in like everything, like,
Sure.
find the good in it and like amplify it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
That's awesome. Is your clientele, seems like a fancy word, is your clientele mostly Lehigh Valley folks or kind of all over the place? I know you mentioned there's people from Philly that were sending you stuff.
No, there's there are outliers who are from like, there's a band from Oregon who I'm doing like all their drumming for their album right now.
Oh, nice.
I haven't seen him in person in years. They were actually originally from the Valley, but he moved out there a while ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
Yeah.
how did they find you?
Yeah. He knew me through, like, our bands played shows together and stuff like that.
Got it.
But then there's like a band from Percy who I've never met before called Voidmaster, and they just hit me up and like asked me to do some doom drumming on their album and like send them a good drum mix for them to just drop in their project. So
Sure.
did that. I've got some random people from Philly and New York who've hit me up for stuff too. Just kind of like, it's usually like a couple degrees of connection in some way to somebody from here, like someone word of mouth told them about me or something like that. But
Got it.
yeah, it's spreading out there a little bit.
That's very cool.
Mhm. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see like the Lehigh Valley kind of reach its arms out a little bit, because I think there is
Totally.
something real
Totally.
special about here. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there definitely is a thing here. The size of it being like the greater Lehigh Valley is like bigger than Pittsburgh. It's
Yeah.
like 450,000 people in this area.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And proximity to bigger cities and all the colleges in the area too.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
I
an
grew up.
overabundance. Yeah.
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 You don't get that in like other cities. Some other cities this size don't have that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I grew up listening to like 4 different college radio stations
Yeah.
and like checking out new music. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I never really thought of like, obviously the college student stuff feeds into whatever's happening in the area, but I never thought of it as like a filter market of like people that just decide to stay here because they're creating here, and then they're like, oh, I really like it, I think I'll just hang around.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with Moravian.
Yeah.
Where like people do the music program there and they end up just like loving it here and
Yeah.
staying around.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because that's like one of the other things that comes up a lot on this show is like the opposite is there are people that they'll come here to visit or they'll come here for projects or something, and then they're just like, oh, I really like it here, I think I'll just stay.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I feel like we could have a little more of we're missing like a small venue. Like, we're missing like a venue, like, you probably aren't familiar with it, but the Wildflower, which was here a long time ago, it was right across the street. It got knocked down for all that stuff to get built. But it was it was very community like. A lot of different types of people would hang out there, just from all walks of life, and they would have an open mic on Mondays, and then you could rent it or just work with the owner to do a show there and stuff like that too. And they would have bigger like punk shows, metal shows, but then just kind of like indie rock shows and folk shows, hippie jam bands, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
They did anything there as long as it was something that like people around here wanted to do. You know what I mean? And we're kind of missing
definitely.
that thing right now. Like, Arts Quest does a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And it's cool how they get students involved with it and stuff like that, which I think is
Right.
really, really great. But sometimes there's something to be said about like, finding your own way into that too.
Right. Yeah, they're very,
Definitely.
very present. So I think something that's kind of on the smaller side is, I don't want to say like it's not easy to find, but like it's a different vibe for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like a place to throw your first show.
Yeah.
That's not like a
Yeah,
hall show or
definitely.
something like that. Because with that whole thing, like, everyone's there to see the band they bought their ticket for, and then they peace. They just dip after that.
Yeah,
and it doesn't
exactly.
foster a community in any way.
Right.
I'm way more interested in having some kind of space that like actually connects people, which is what I try and do with here, even though it's not a show space. But we try and do that with like Tape Swap, and
Sure.
like I try and connect people all the time with like getting bands here to meet each other, talk to each other, book shows together and stuff like that. But having a venue to do that would be huge.
That's very cool.
Definitely.
So you've mentioned Tape Swap a couple times. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's a platform for artists to be seen, basically, and it's kind of there to hold a mirror up to the valley and show everybody what we are. Look at ourselves. Look at this cool thing that happens here. Don't you want to do this? You know what I mean? Like, this is something you could do. Like, make some songs and record them and
definitely.
get good, and then come on our show and play on a roof and like show your friends because you're doing cool stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
there
for
for that
sure.
main purpose, to be an engine of like getting people to like really want to stay motivated to be creative and do stuff. And then also to kind of document all of this.
Sure.
We've had bands from like Spain and Italy on the show before. And then we've done a full day of recording bands straight up from here in Allentown. You know what I mean? We have all kinds of different people. People from
very cool.
Philly, bands from New York. Sometimes if someone like needs a tour date and there's nothing between New York and Philly or something like that, and they have a day off, they'll come in and do a session here.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
so
super
neat.
cool.
we were able to capture bands who otherwise like would have just skipped over town.
Yeah.
Yeah, definally.
Oh, like Transcam from Japan. That was a great one.
I just watched that one
Oh,
this
you did?
morning.
Yeah, they're so cool.
That was very cool.
They're such a cool, weird band. They call their music junk, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, I was like scrolling through trying to like, I didn't have a lot of time, and I was like, oh, I want to watch a couple of these before we go in tonight. And I was like, this one. I was like, that was so fun.
It was cool, right? There's all these special things that get overlooked,
Yeah.
and we kind of want to just like capture that. We do shows too, so we do quarterly shows at the Ice House.
Yeah.
Or we were
Yeah.
until the pandemic. We hosted the Lehigh Valley Punk Rock Flea Market.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. We have one. I'm pretty sure it's about to happen. We've been trying to squeeze it in before it gets cold because we want to do it outside
Right.
at
Got
the
it.
library.
Got it. Yeah.
But we're here to kind of just like keep it interesting in the community, like give artists another outlet, keep people's eyes on
Totally.
interesting things other than just kind of, I don't know what else you do.
Yeah.
Blindly consuming.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
there's so many people doing so many cool things, and you're right, it definitely gets overlooked. So it's nice to have platforms to just
Like what you do.
just expression. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
cool.
to
I
highlight
know.
it,
I
basically.
think that's like,
Definitely.
I was really excited to come in and talk to you because I think like the mission is so very much the same. That's like just want to support artists and people making art and making
yeah.
music.
They're right
and-
here. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
they're all here.
They're here. They just
Exactly.
need help.
Yeah.
Or they need like a
Exactly.
reason to do what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm saying with the venue thing, like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's nowhere to do that.
Yeah. And getting people to work together
Mhm.
is the biggest thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're a musician and I'm a musician. No, we're not in immediate direct competition.
Oh, hell no.
Work with each other.
Yeah.
No, I like fostering that stuff too.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we're starting a venue? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. every month I end up going on this rant with somebody about this,
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Yeah, we should start a venue, Matt. Come on." I'm like, yeah, I have time for that. Someone else should.
Yeah.
If you're listening, start a venue. I'll help you out in some way. I guarantee it. I will overextend myself. You just got to do the bulk of the work.
Sure.
I will not leave you
Oh
alone.
my goodness. Yeah.
So you've talked about quite a bit about the just kind of like randomness of creating in this space too. So what's like your creative process for writing music and for mixing music?
For writing music, it could start on just I write a lot of stuff on guitar as a start. If it's not that, stuff kind of pops in my head while I'm just walking around doing stuff. Like I start to hear sounds, textures, maybe like a riff or something like that, or a chord progression, and then I come here and I'll here or at home in my setup there, and I'll like see if it actually holds any water. Like the other day I did one and I was like, oh, this is gonna sound so cool. I had this Mellotron thing in my head, and I came over here and put it down. I was like, this is so whack. Like, this is so dumb. This is not exciting. It's kind of pretty, but like it's not for what I'm doing. Then I rework it. And just keep going until it sounds like something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll write stuff on guitar, bring it here. I usually have like clusters of lyrical ideas that I write down here and there. I'm like horrifically unorganized with stuff like that usually, and I just have like 5 different notebooks with things scattered in them. I tried to be organized, but getting a notebook for each thing. Like I have my drum notebook, then I have my heavy band notebook, and I have my studio ideas notebook, and then they ended up being interchanged anyway because I'm like, oh, where is that one?
Yeah, I get that.
Somewhere else.
You know, they make like 5 subject notebooks that have.
Wait, what?
That sounds like cheating.
That's too easy.
No, it is too easy. I've always been terrible with that stuff. But like something about how I work, it works itself out. I'm sure I could be more organized, but
it
in
happens.
some
If you're
way it
getting the
works.
job done, the organization's not nearly as important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I'll have-
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of always have clusters of ideas for lyrics, for music, for the Lehigh Valley,
Sure.
for the local music and art scene, like all that stuff. And I kind of just memorize it most of the time and forget to write it down. Or sometimes like if it's like 2 a.m. and I quick like open my text messages, I'll text myself to my email ideas. So I'll have a bunch of things from my phone number that I store through later.
There you go.
Whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it's cool. I think everyone should have a riffy band because like I've never had more fun doing voix voix as I have now that I have a band that's like heavy and riff oriented.
Sure.
It's like the healthiest thing I've ever done, I think. It's so great. I'm in a band called Wipes and it's all it's just riffed out, kind of Nirvana-ish, but kind of heavier, kind of Pixies-ish, but kind of heavier. And I play this guitar that has a big floppy low F string, and it's so fun to do something different like that. But like, voix voix is really tedious. Like, I'll bring a song to that band with April, and then she'll kind of pick it apart begrudgingly, and then we'll kind of like revisit it and hack away at it, kind of like a sculpture. Mm-hmm. But with Wipes, it's like, here's the riff, make a second section, we throw it out there, do we like it? No, come back to it, done. We just keep charging.
Sure.
Because I can kind of, how my mind works with stuff like that is I just like come up with stuff pretty quick and then deal with it later.
Yeah.
So like voix voix can be kind of like tedious. But
that makes sense.
It's never felt better to do tedious stuff as when I have another outlet.
Yeah.
So I've been really loving riffing out with Wipes. It's been great.
Sure.
So you have like your primary and then like your secondary. I like
it's like 2 different parts of my brain. Really.
Yeah. So maybe not primary and secondary aren't like right brain, left brain.
Yeah. They're kind of like even in a way. Yeah.
Very
nice.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah. In mixing, I really just try and find like the heart of the song and just like what it's really trying to convey, and then I just try and make everything push that along, like push along whatever narrative is there. So I want to make the mood fit. And sometimes songs are like, and by artist admission, they don't really mean much of anything. And I still try and find something special about it no matter what, make it kind of like push itself along and sound like very defined as its own standalone thing, but also in a group of work, be able to work together too.
Nice.
It's a very holistic approach when it comes to mixing. I don't do anything like by rote or by like preset or anything like that. Like I approach every mix as its own special thing and then work it into what I think is its best version of itself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is there a band locally or not locally that you just really like working with? There's a lot of creativity and a lot of freedom to kind of do that sort of thing.
I mean, a lot of them are so cool like that.
Awesome.
This girl I'm working with, Jessie Ray, she's in a band called We're From Antarctica, and I'm like really deep in the production with her of her first solo album. So it's really cool. Like we spent like a half hour last time just making some weird drone, and we just like went out of space for a little bit, but we're being really like really particular about all the sounds and trying to make it its best. And it's her first release ever, and she's young and really excited about it, but she's like really let me inside pretty close to the project, and I really, really appreciate it because it's like the deepest I'm really going with anybody right now.
Yeah.
But then some of the other bands, like her band, I'm kind of deep in it with them too. We're From Antarctica. Like, we all are kind of producing it together, but they're giving me like pretty much band member status with my ideas and everything, which is, it's really, it's cool and it's creepy. Like, it's cool that they trust me, but I'm also like, man, I really got to get this right. That's a lot of power. This is someone's creative output. You know what I mean? This is like something they care about so much.
Yeah.
Totally.
We must be good at it if people trust you.
Hey.
I just do what I do.
No, I think so much of it is like you seem very passionate about what you do. So I think that's a great asset.
And it's like the people thing too. Like I want to see them all do their best. You know what I mean? And like come out with something that they really like.
Yeah.
Totally.
I know like how meaningful music can be to somebody depending on where they are in their life and stuff like that. Or just for some people, like having a creative process like that, like can save their lives in some cases. They can pull them out of really terrible situations.
Yeah. Over the past 12 years, how have streaming services impacted what you do here?
It kind of confused me. Like we were talking about LUFs before and stuff like that. I was like laid up from surgery and like going down rabbit holes on YouTube and not trusting myself for some reason. I was in bed for 3 weeks. It was stupid.
Oh man.
Because I like to be active. And I got in this thing about, wait, am I mixing things too hot? So then this one project, I actually tried to hit the target for Spotify and it sounded so dumb and so weak. So I was like, nah, you're fine. Just do your thing.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Yeah, I found the same thing, even with mixing for the show. Like the first few episodes of our show, I was mixing at all the recommended things and I listened back to it. I'm like, this isn't doing it for me. Yeah. So I started mixing it a little bit more hot too. And I'm like, all right, this is making a world of a difference for me. It's
just a bunch of people with, I call it message board abs.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's interesting to me looking at the impact of compression ratings specifically tied to streaming services and what that can mean for the average consumer and at the producer level as well.
Well, I think Spotify sounds better than it did before. I think they use a different codec.
They do. Yeah.
So it's relieving that it sounds better. I remember it sounded all like watery at one point. Not stuff that I did, just with everything. I could like hear it sounding kind of weird.
Totally.
And I'm not calling myself a purist, but like I'll do lots of weird things to rough up audio and make it dirty and this and that. Like once it's done, I want it to sound like the thing that left here.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Do you have any like creative mediums that you export to? Like, do you do vinyl? Do you do CD?
Oh, I'd love to do vinyl. Nah, I wish I had a vinyl. I do mix down onto tape sometimes, onto reel to reel.
Cool.
I have like a good old pro mastering deck from the early 80s. So
that's so cool.
Sound. Yeah. Totally. I have 2 tape machines that I record to too. I have an 8-track. And then I have another portable 8-track that I actually want to start taking out to record people.
Nice.
I have some people in California I know who may be interested in me coming out to cut an album with them on that kind of thing.
Oh,
that's super cool.
Yeah.
Are there other people that do that kind of stuff? Or you're like holding the market on?
No, and it's funny. The last time I did an interview, I was talking about this. So I love when I get called out on things that I say I'm going to do that I didn't do yet. But I don't know if you ever saw the poorly edited podcast by Lab 212 with those folks. Yeah, I was a guest on their show a bit ago, and I brought about the same thing. I was like, yeah, I want to do a recording tour because in my very early 20s, I traveled the country, like thanks to the whole like learning about punk rock and finding this thing called Book Your Own Effing Life. It was a resource and it was like just a list of bands, promoters, venues, like Food Not Bombs things and like record stores, like info shops, anywhere where you get zines and stuff like that kind of thing. I booked tours for my bands that I was in my early 20s and I toured the country DIY style. It was all just people we found who want small bands who are unknown to come to their place.
Sure.
Which took me everywhere, like the upper end of New York to Roswell, Carlsbad, where there's like that bat cave in New Mexico at the back of a record store.
Oh my goodness.
Like a, population 10,000 person town out there had us play.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But from all that, I kind of like was thinking about recording and I was like, I really want to like do that, but instead of gigging, I want to like come to people who are those small bands in those small towns and like kind of document them.
Sure.
And come and record them too, like get them a good recording. I mean, I'm sure they could do some stuff on their own, but it sounds fun to have someone who lived that lifestyle, I think, to come to them and like visit their town and feel things out and meet new people and record them. So I want to do a kind of recording tour of sorts, basically.
Say like punk road trip. That would be like the coolest documentary ever.
My friend actually, my friend Chris, who's a student at Temple for film, he actually wants to follow along for some of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
We might do it in little loops. Like I go to Brooklyn to work with this band Hugs. He'll come along for like 2 days there. And then in Chicago, I know a band who had me mix their stuff. Someone I met on the road in my 20s, basically. Contacted me and had me mix their album and whatever. They talked about having me out there. Then I know people in LA. I know someone in Austin who has like 1,000 square foot like loft space kind of thing. It's just a matter of finding the bands who want to do anything like that. But yeah, it'd be really cool.
That is super cool.
That's awesome.
In talking with different musicians and those in the music industry, we found that it's a little bit more difficult to identify as an artist from a singular area in the music industry. And I love what you were just talking about, that touring and recording in their towns. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of that specifically in capturing a sound or capturing an identity.
Yeah, well, I mean, you never feel more at home than your rehearsal space.
Totally.
That's why I want this place to feel as close to what someone would have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I already like the idea because I'd be going to where they're most comfortable. You know what I mean? And it might not be ideal acoustically,
Totally.
but I'd rather capture something really cool. Now, obviously, if it's like, you know, a houseboat and there's a hurricane, it might not work out too well. The sound might be a little messed up, but like I'll go anywhere. You can make stuff work. There's so many great recordings are being done at home, but I like the idea of feeling people out and like maybe, you know, meeting some of their friends, seeing what their town is like, that kind of thing. Like it all informs a lot of what their sound is. You know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Definitely.
This guy, Kevin, who was a student at Lehigh, a grad student, he had connected with Tape Swap. And he started coming out to some shows here or there. He said, do you mind if I come and film sometimes? He's like, I'm going to do a little thing on like a project of mine on some different things happening in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
He was part of a film crew on this other thing Lehigh did for their digital archive about like the arts and stuff like that and cultural placemaking. And he was just part of the crew for that. And he'd just show up every now and then. He'd come to like the punk rock flea market. He shot stuff here and there. I didn't think it was any huge thing. And then like I saw that and I was like, this is about me. And this is about like the studio and Tape Swap and what's going on here. This is wild.
And it just showed up at Southside Film Fest?
Yeah.
That's how you found out about it?
He told me like a week before or less than that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
It was totally left field. It was so wild.
That's very cool though.
But it was like cool, obviously cool to see his perspective of that, because I'm just in the thick of everything. Same with Seamus, and we're just doing what we do. We're not looking from outside. Like we're seeing kind of the valley overhead view, but we don't see what we're doing as anything special.
Sure.
Well, I was going to say, conceptually, that's kind of what you're talking about with this like traveling recording project is like he was capturing, maybe if he's a student, maybe he doesn't live around here, maybe he's not from here. So he's very much coming in and capturing kind of like what you're doing and what
from the
people
outside,
that you work with from the outside.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
It is similar.
You got a chance to watch it, I assume?
I did, yeah. You got me some passes and I went down and watched that, and I didn't know what to expect. And then I saw how much that was about me, and I was like semi-horrified. And then they were like, I was like, I really got to go. Like I have a session that night. That was already booked for a session. I had no idea this was going to happen. Yeah. And they like turn on the lights and they're like, oh, and that's the subject back there. And they're like clapping for me. I'm like, I got to go. This is weird.
So you're crawling into the seats on the way out.
They wanted me to do a Q&A and stuff. I'm like,
oh gosh.
Oh, wow. They got intense fast, but I had no idea.
I can imagine.
That's funny. Oh, I'm sorry I missed that. I made it to like 80% of Southside Film Fest, but I definitely didn't see that one. But now I have to go back and look for it. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really nice of him to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, you've mentioned your band quite a bit, and I'd love to hear about you and the other members' collaborative process.
In Wawa?
Yeah.
With that one, I bring starting points to April, and then we kind of knock stuff around, chop away at it. She usually likes to change things quite a bit. Like we have some songs that we've been working on for like 4 years off and on. Not every day, but you know what I mean? It's hung around that long.
Yeah.
Some of them happen fast too. Like I'll just have the whole thing written, and I'll bring it to her, and then it's just done. But a lot of the time it's a lot of heavy duty collaboration, finding the right sounds and layers and vibes and toiling over lyrics and making the sound match exactly what we're trying to say and everything. And sometimes it happens faster than others.
Nice.
But it's pretty in depth. And we bring it to one of my old good friends, Joe, who I moved to California with years ago when I first moved there. Guitar player. And he and I are like kindred when it comes to guitar stuff. Like we have very similar sensibilities, but we're different. So like we just link up on stuff super well. And then our rhythm section is a husband and wife team who are married. So our rhythm section is a married duo.
That's
drummer
cool.
and bass player. And they play off each other really well. And he's a really great drummer. She's a really solid bass player. Plays real nice and simple and like hard hitting and everything together.
Yeah.
And then the Wipes band, it's more like someone has a riff and emails it. I'll send a riff in with a video or something like that, and then usually I won't write more than a part or two because I want to give them a chance to kind of respond to it and see what happens. Because I like seeing like that reinterpretation kind of.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes he'll tweak my riff by like a note or a measure or something like that, and then I'll respond to that in a way, and then we just kind of come up with another section, play through it until we feel like it's cool. And
Totally.
Yeah, that's the Wipes one where it's very quick.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Get stuff out fast.
Now, where did you get both of those names from?
Wawa, we were literally trying to make a band name, and like for some reason I just like thought in French for a second, because I had French for a long time, and like I'm terrible, but like I had French for a while, and I was like thinking of things in French, and then for a second I was like, oh yeah, that's like I'm doing voix right now. I'm like trying to see myself in this with this band name. I'm trying to imagine myself.
Sure.
And I told April that I was like, actually, I'm literally voixing right now. I'm like, I'm doing this kind of cool French thing. And she was like, oh, that's actually pretty. And it kind of looks like noir. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she said, just do it twice and I'm sold. She
Nice.
likes double band names.
Okay.
It's like pretty garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty garbage. The band name was a little too overt.
Yeah. You have to leave something for them to figure out.
Oh my gosh.
And Wipes, I think, was the Ray from Wipes. He sings and plays bass. I think he came up with that just because of the pandemic or something. He works. He has a skateboard company called Lost Soul Skateboards, and he also works a couple days at UPS as a side job and everything. And then he does like thrifting and stuff like that. He's just always doing fun stuff, creative stuff. And I think he just came up with that one day kind of randomly. It was kind of like pandemic related in some way, because the Wipes were kind of a big thing.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing, kind of a big deal. And we started the band during the pandemic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was from the ashes of a band called Tile. Their guitar player, he had a kid and they wanted to put it on hiatus and everything, but he and the drummer Mikey wanted to keep going. So Tile still exists, but they brought me in and just renamed it as a new project altogether. And it's a different vibe because I do different stuff than that guy does.
Yeah.
What was it like starting a band during the pandemic? Like, how did you navigate that?
Oh, it's so weird because like everything here was super weird. Like I remember my first week back in the studio, like August 2020, and everything I did was just horrifying. Like I was like sanitizing my hands after I even went near somebody, and like spraying stuff down when they left, and spraying everything, and like trying to remember like, wait, they can go in there with their mask off, but not there, but I can't go in there for a day, and then like all these little details.
My goodness, yeah.
And I had just done a bunch of stuff to help, like I put those hand sanitizer pumps everywhere, and like that kind of stuff. So when it came to starting the band, we talked about it from July, late June or something like that. It was all talk from then till September when we first finally got together.
Wow.
We were just kind of planning on like where we're going to do it. At first we were going to go to their space in Emmaus, and then like my partner April is a nurse, and she was worried that like we're too close in that room even if we're masked, and she works with like kids who are very sick, so we didn't want to put anyone in jeopardy.
Sure.
So it was like all these little details and going back and forth, and how many nights a week do we practice, how much time can I put into it, all that kind of stuff. It was all very like meticulously talked about and figured out, just like everything was here. It's very, very odd. And it was just emailing riffs basically. I think we didn't even get together until we had like 3 or 4 riffs that we'd sent back and forth. And then we came in and picked a couple of them, and then started the process.
Totally.
Definitely a weird time to start a band though.
Yeah, I could imagine so.
I can talk about what's on these walls for hours and hours, I think.
That's the beauty of it.
The one thing I really like is there is something with like a dinosaur on a red couch with the blue spray paint. That's like my favorite thing in here. I've already decided that's like,
awesome.
it looks like he has crab claws, but I also have terrible eyesight, so like I'm not quite sure.
He's just got little like hands like that.
Love it.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'd buy a print of that.
Dinosaur on a couch is a pretty funny combo of things. I really appreciate it. That's one of the few things I actually did myself here.
Yeah. But you have a ton of cool stuff in here. I really like this guitar that's kind of hanging over the studio space.
That's from a marionette maker named Doug Royston who does stuff at the Ice House under Mock Turtle Marionette Theater.
Yeah,
he makes amazing, intricate marionettes.
Yes.
I've known his son forever. Like I grew up with him, and his son was like, "Hey, I left you a guitar at Shards." This was like 10 years ago. I'm like, how'd you get in? He's like, "It's outside." I'm like, "Why would you leave a guitar outside?" It's like, "It's raining." He's like, "Just go get it." And I show up and that thing's leaning on the building. He said his dad was giving it away.
Oh
but
my gosh.
apparently he had a marionette that he built that was big enough to look like it was playing that guitar.
Surprise me.
Do you know Doug?
I don't know, but I know his work.
You know his
super
work?
well, yeah.
Yeah. His stuff
That's
is
amazing.
His stuff's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, if you walk like right into Touchstone, they have like this huge marionette puppet that's like wrapped around a chair. And there's been a couple times where I walked in there and I see kids like dodge it and they're like, "Oh my god!" And then they're like, "Oh, it's big. Like it's all like the legs are like folded and the arms are folded so that you can't really like."
Oh my
like
god,
if it wouldn't fit like standing up.
Sure.
Yeah. So that well, apparently there was like something that went to that was big enough to play it. So it would have been as tall as the ceiling about.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah.
Both terrifying and absolutely impressive.
Hey, it got some friends of mine out of trouble when we were kids. They like think they were drinking 40s in the alley or something like that, like somewhere in West Bethlehem, and like the cops started coming after them, so they like ditched the 40s and they ran into Ben's dad's workshop, Doug Royston's like little like lair, and like the cops went in there and like looked around, saw all the marionettes, and they're like, "Let's go." They left him alone. They literally got scared and ran away.
Oh my god.
Puppets scared cops away.
So funny.
Yeah.
So where does most of the stuff in here come from? It's gifted and
thrifted, and like
thrifted.
People have a like they have a vibe for the place, so then they like bring things to like the golden toilet seat was like a gift from somebody who knew that I would want something like that.
Yeah.
I have a piece by this artist named Jesse Reno back there, but right next to that amp. He's like a really well-known artist and educator now. It's like that alien looking thing right there.
Oh, yeah.
I actually realized how I gotta put that somewhere more featured because it's so cool. But yeah, it's come from all over the place. Like
it's like the opposite of like I'm looking at this thinking like this is such a cool conglomerate, and the way that it's set up is random because it reflects the people that have been in the space, right?
Yeah.
But like when you think about hanging art from like a gallery perspective, that's so like traditionalist and like the way that stuff is hung, and I really like this, and it made me laugh when you're like, I got to put that in a more prominent place. Like it's there because that's where it ended up, and I love that.
Yeah. Like I kind of changed the arrangement over there, but I didn't change the art behind it or anything.
Sure.
But yeah, people have done murals here. Like like that one is Matt Janevic. There's a lobster on the front that was done by Todd Janevic, who works at, I said lit last time, he works at The Joint, and he tattoos an electric cheetah.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a lobster out there. He did some other random stuff when he was in here recording with his band Goat Wizard.
Cool.
Yeah, so they did some actual mural work on the walls.
I like
which is
his
cool.
stuff. I've seen some of his stuff hanging in the Joint before. We're like, I wonder who that guy is, and we like looked him up, and his stuff is really cool.
It is really cool.
Is he the guy?
Yeah.
He's the only.
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
He's the only one who I've ever had tattoo me.
Oh,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah. Like I kind of particular about that.
We're coming after
Sure.
you, Todd.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I had someone design this. I used to work with people with mental illness, and one of the people we bonded over like chasing storms and stuff was this guy who's been through
like
unspeakable traumas and stuff like that.
Tornado chase kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not like tornado chases, but like we were chasing storms and stuff like that. He was really into earth science and stuff, and the traumas he's seen were incredible, but just that he could get up and every day like live his life, given what he went through, which it's unspeakable.
Yeah.
Like, oof, it's terrible, but it was really inspiring, and I thought he was a great guy, so I let him draw this for me, and then Todd Janevic took it and interpreted it and then redrew it for me. It's basically like, because I was like amazed he can get out of bed every day and like go on with his life. So I have an empty bed being struck by lightning, kind of saying like, get out, go do something. Don't waste your life. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's fun.
Or you're going to get struck in bed.
That's
I like it.
very cool tattoo.
I like it.
Todd did a great job interpreting it.
Very poetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Tell me about this music sign here.
That was from some play that went on at Symphony Hall in Allentown.
Ah, okay.
I had friends who did like set dressing and that kind of stuff, set design there. And this dude, Bart, grabbed it because he thought I'd like it. And like, I wasn't here. Someone let him in. And like, he apparently was just up there dangling from there, just stringing the thing up by himself with no help.
Oh my goodness.
But he actually put it up for me and everything.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. I thought it was a cool addition when I was doing shows this way too.
Yeah.
The show kind of thing. It feels like
A
more
stage
venue-ish.
kind of,
This actually used to be the quote-unquote stage. When that wall wasn't there, bands would set up like pretty much right there, and then all of each of the band's gear, depending on how many bands play, would be stuffed in the back, and then people would stand out here.
Wow.
It was pretty wild.
When you were doing those in here, how many people could you fit?
I mean, could fit.
Did fit.
Did fit. We did fit. Pretty sure we had like, very unfortunately and very dangerously, and I'm sorry that I did this, but 75 people maybe.
Wow.
70, 80, something like that.
Sure.
Wow.
For this band, Settle from Easton, who were pretty popular in like the late aughts. It was packed. And I'm sweaty. It was amazing.
So.
It was great. It was great. There's nothing as terrible as that was. Nothing beats that feeling now.
Oh, sure.
It was really cool.
Sure.
Very best and very worst.
Yeah.
It's just dangerous. That's all. I like think about it and like, oh man, if a fire broke out, that'd be,
oh my goodness,
that'd be terrible.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. It's,
I just kind of wised up and was like, I can't do stuff that big anymore. I can do small things like, we do attendance sessions for the Shards session sometimes. So we'll have people in to hang out and watch or whatever.
Oh, that's
make it
cool.
feel a little more like an actual live show. And like, that's cool. But like a blowout show in here would be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think that a couple years ago, the biggest problem would have been a fire, and now it's somebody coughing.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about Shards, and that's the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that name and where that came from.
Shards came from way back when it was a rehearsal space still, and I still had a recording setup in the back, but I kind of sublet it to a bunch of people. And someone was in here practicing, and I was waiting outside to jam with some people, and I was sitting on my hands outside, and then I stood up and I was like, whoa, Shards, because I had glass just imprinted smashed into my hand.
Oh my gosh.
And someone was like, you should call the studio that. And I was like, yeah, you're right, that's a great idea. And it was then consecrated.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was the moment.
Yeah. I love how in the moment all of the names for everything that you've been involved in just come up. I love it so much. Very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what it's about.
Yeah, definitely. We've talked with quite a few different artists from different mediums about texture and how texture is applicable to their works. But we haven't
sound.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it in the music or sound sense though. We've talked about it mainly in the visual sense. And I'd love to hear you describe texture
interesting.
to the best that you can.
It's weird for me because I have a mild synesthesia.
Okay.
So I actually if depending on how loud I listen to something and how I kind of have to let go a little bit, but like some things just I can't help it. They make a little color or a dot or like some kind of visual scape happen to a degree. It's nothing like wild or anything like that, but some things have like a texture visually to me when I hear them. I remember the first time I noticed that happened, like I was EQing a kick drum in my basement, and I saw it as like a little, almost like a flash going off, like the little light a flash leaves after you see a bright flash. Yeah. It was like that happening over and over again. It was kind of like all color at the same time in one point going beep, 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 like that. So I kind of actually see it a little bit.
That's super cool.
And it kind of affects me in a way, like if I was touching something I don't want to touch. If something's hitting me the wrong way, it feels like an actual physical sensation kind of.
Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think maybe it has something to do with, I don't know, like music they played for me when I was like a baby or something like that.
Baby Mozart music.
Yeah. I just think some things are cross-wired in my brain that shouldn't be. I also have an olfactory sneeze response or reflex where if you look at light, you sneeze.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was like
Or
a thing.
Photic sneeze reflex. It's something like
I have
that.
the same thing.
Oh, I
It's like-
definitely have that one.
Really? Okay.
I
so
didn't
it's-
realize that was like.
yeah, it's nothing crazy, but it's like I think only like 20% of 17 to 20% of people have that
Oh
or
my
something like
goodness.
that.
I used to joke with my doctor all the time and say, I think I'm allergic to the sun. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, when I look up at it, I can't help but sneeze.
So I thought if I have that going on where the olfactory nerve is crossed with my optic nerve in some way, like maybe the optic
okay.
nerve is crossed with my like auditory nerve too.
Yeah.
Or something like
Entirely
that.
Yeah.
possible.
Who knows?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's cool though. I like that. And being in this space and having listened to some of your music today, you talked about that, not necessarily grunge, but like grunge-ish sound.
Mhm.
And being in this space and knowing that's where you record most of it, it's cool seeing how the space and the music kind of work together to capture that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Absolutely.
an instrument.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially like the new little vocal booth is kind of like that. I was kind of coaching this band called The Basements. They're really young. I think like 3 of them are seniors in high school and one's in
Wow.
college.
Oh wow.
And they were doing vocals, and I was just kind of showing them like how if you go off the mic a little bit, the room kind of suddenly blossoms and just
Sure.
goes woo and kind of sounds exciting, like you're expressing yourself in a very aggressive way in a room or in your
Yeah,
bedroom, or
definitely.
yelling somewhere or something like that. But that one right there is kind of an instrument in itself. Like people use that all the time in different ways to get different vocal sounds and stuff like that.
Oh, that's super cool.
And this room has a very stark, like I can get stuff close to the drums or close to amps and keep it nice and tight and dry it up. But when you get room mics in here, it has this sound of a hall show punk to me. Like it feels like you're front row at some
Yeah.
show. Like the sound of everything hitting the concrete, smacking room mics in the middle just sounds very much sounds like this area.
Oh my
Sounds
goodness.
like-
yeah.
Sounds like, aggressive music, like Rust,
Yeah.
like a steel belt.
Industrial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, all of us have someone connected to steel in some way. And
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. What is the furthest extent that you've gone to capture a sound like that?
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I told you how I stuck a mic in the heater before.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool trick for a room mic, a reverb chamber thing. And I mentioned the dumpster. I mean, I've put mics in the front room and opened the door so that kind of becomes a little reverb chamber. When I track drums, I have the window open right there. I actually was doing drums last night, so I have the window slid over there so that the drums spill into that room. And depending on, because like of the waveforms, I can actually EQ the room by how far open I open the
that's
window.
Super cool.
If it's this big, it's mainly high frequencies that get in.
Yeah.
And then as you open it up, more mids get in. So like it's a pretty quick and subtle thing, but it goes
Totally.
from dead and very just bassy because it's mainly everything's reflected back here and some is absorbed to, as you open it, you start to get the splash of the snare and some of the cymbal sizzle.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where like it's actually letting the snare drums like punch in too.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's like its own little physical EQ adjuster right there.
Yeah.
That's so specific to this space. You can never leave.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I just talked to the landlord a couple of weeks ago. I was like, "You sure I'm going to be here for a long time? Like, this is going to stay, right?" And he assured me that as long as he is alive, that I will be the tenant here, which is really
that's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he gave his kids instructions that if anything happens to him, that to keep everything how it is, keep this as their property and the family and whatever. Don't get rid of anybody. Like, I believe he'll do it too because he like. In his contract with like Nawab, he put in their contract for their lease that they can't fire their chef.
What?
Like once they change managers
Oh
or
my
something like
gosh.
that. Because he's like, that's the number one thing that kills restaurants. When you change the chef and then start
Yeah.
firing people,
Sure.
the food changes and people don't like it as much and they stop going there.
Yeah.
So to ensure like him having a tenant that stays there and them staying a good restaurant, he literally put something in the contract
my
saying
gosh.
they can't fire their chef.
That's
too
amazing.
funny.
Power move.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No kidding.
Talk about collaboration.
I was like, how invested are you in your community? Do you write it into your contracts that you can't fire the chef?
Yeah,
That's
that's
too
amazing.
funny.
Oh
I mean,
my
the landlord's
goodness.
great. He let me get away with all this too. You know what I mean? So I give him,
Sure.
I give him tons of credit.
Sure.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Did
And
this
go ahead.
did this steel beam here come yellow or did you paint it yellow?
No, it was yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it rotates 180 degrees, so it actually I'll get to the actually what this building was used for before in a second, but it rotates from there, that wall, and see how like there's a little weird cut on the end of it there?
Yeah.
That is cut just so it, by like 2 inches, folds back past that heater and then against the wall again.
Oh my goodness.
So it goes by the 2 little like support things and back.
Yeah.
So it was used to slide around compressors for the machines that make snow at ski resorts. They fixed them here. It was a machine shop where they fixed snowmaker compressors.
That is so random.
It was like a snowflake factory.
Yes.
Oh
my
That
goodness.
sounds like a good band name.
Snowflake factory.
Snowflake Factory.
Oh
Very
man.
cool.
And also with all the stuff that you see too, you said before it reflects.
Yeah.
It reflects the people, but also I have everything placed in a way where I use it to break up reflections in the room too.
Okay.
So it actually does, even though they're not your typical acoustical treatments, I do have normal, real deal, like legit treatment for acoustics and stuff like that around diffusers, a homemade diffuser. But all this other stuff like serves to make it so that stuff, like basically there's a thing called flutter echo that you probably heard in like a stairwell or in a bedroom that's just plain walls.
Yeah.
When you have parallel walls, which I actually made these skew, when you have parallel walls, which I'm stuck with the 2 concrete size,
Right.
Totally.
stuff sounds really boingy, like a high frequency, like like that.
Yeah.
So I kept this one bare because I want a nice reflection. And then this side, I loaded up with junk everywhere because I wanted to break up those reflections so you don't get that swingy sound. And I have like no flutter echo here. Same with the guitar, with like a convex surface like that.
Yeah.
With sound bouncing off at an equal opposite angle. So there's really no way any sound hitting that is going to go back where it came from.
Got it.
It's just reflecting it someplace else.
Yeah, totally.
And by doing all this, when I put these walls in and that, it actually increased the reverb time, the apparent reverb time in the room.
Yeah.
Because before it was like a dead wall out front and then this one in the back. And it's stuff, once stuff was in here, it soaked up enough of it that it didn't sound too big actually.
Sure.
When you put these in and you put them skew, sound bounces around more.
Got it.
Yeah. So it made it sound a lot cooler.
Yeah, that is super cool.
So, Matt, if someone is interested in recording here or seeing what you do, where can they find your stuff?
They can find me on Instagram at Shards_recording_studio, which has links to my website, which is just shardsrecordingstudio.com. There's a link to my SoundCloud too, where I have some examples and stuff like that. And if you kind of follow what I'm doing, you'll kind of get an idea for both what I'm kind of just doing in general with like what my outlook on things and just kind of the work that I do here too. I often post like an update every couple of months of like a bunch of what I'm working on or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Very cool.
Matt, you have anything else exciting coming out soon?
Oh yeah, one really cool thing that's I'm working on a loop and sample pack with the company BandLab. They're a DAW, a digital audio workstation.
Yeah.
They used to be called Cakewalk. Cakewalk Sonar was like a big DAW for years, and then they got bought by this company. And they're doing something more for people who want to work in loop-based stuff, kind of like a more loop-based GarageBand or Logic.
Okay.
So that should be out in November at some point.
Very cool.
Got to make
Very
it first
exciting.
before they can actually release it.
That's fair. That happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for hosting us in the studio today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Everyone definitely come check Matt out and the
Let's hang
studio
out.
and Shard Studio Space. It's awesome.
Yes.
Can't recommend it highly enough. It's been a really fun place to record. So
Definitely.
thank you for having us.
Oh,
And thanks
thank you
for
for having me.
coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, a Steel Pixel original series. Don't forget to like the podcast, leave us a review, and follow us on both social media and streaming services at Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast.